Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I'll be talking to former students and other people that I know who will tell their story about their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap into the journeys that my former students and friends of mine have taken, for them to share their experiences with my current students, and for that matter, anyone else interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. If you like what you're hearing, please like, subscribe, hit 5 stars, and do whatever you can to help us out. It's greatly appreciated. Let's welcome today's guest, Sara Rudeseal. Hi, Sara. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Now, Sara and I were just talking about how long I have known her. Sara is now 18, and I've known her since she was about 4 or 5 years old. She is one of my wife's oldest college friends, a sorority sister, and as we started traveling and found out that they were along the way, we used to stop and see them. So Sara grew up in a family of thespians, actors, and Sara apparently has caught the bug as well. So I thought it would be a great idea to ask Sara if she would come on the podcast and talk about her experiences of where she is now, how she got here, because going from being a young girl to a woman being in the acting world is probably something that many people out there have thought about and that they would like to do. I think Sara brings along a lot of experience to tell young people of how it worked for her. And remember, not everybody's path is the same, and what worked for her may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for her. So once again, Sara, thank you so much for coming on. I'd like you to take
thank you for having me.
Oh, please. Thank you so much. It's just so nice to see you and talk to you and hear about your experiences because, again, there's a little Sara out there, whether they're in my classroom, cyberspace, listening to on YouTube or Spotify, that's going to go, I want to be an actress. But unfortunately, Sara has an advantage because she grew up in an acting family. Her father has been on television shows and in movies. Her mother has acted on stage and was an actress in college. So she kind of has an unfair advantage. I guess it would be like being the son or daughter of a professional athlete. You're going to be one, whether you want to or not.
It's kind of a Nepo baby situation, but on a smaller scale.
Exactly. Well, we're hoping it becomes bigger because you have a long time to Nepo that up.
Yeah.
So that's what's amazing that she does. I'd like you to take a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself. Please tell where you went to middle school, when you went to high school, and what you're doing now. Please let us know. First of all, let us know where you're from because Sara was not my student. She is just a friend's kid who's now an adult.
Yeah. Okay, my name is Sara, and I'm doing this podcast right now. I'm currently 18, and I am still in high school. I'm a senior. And I went to 4 different middle schools. So I was in 6th grade when COVID hit. So I kind of did a weird situation where we were in public school and then I was online. And then I went to a little homeschooling group in Georgia. And then I went back in school for 8th grade and then we moved. So in 3 years, I managed to hit so many different forms of middle school, but they were all really enjoyable. And now I'm located in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm just finishing up high school.
That's awesome. Yes, I remember the tribes and tribulations of you bouncing around. And like I said, your mom calling me because I'm a teacher. I get that a lot from parents whose kids are having issues in middle school. Should I send my kid to the private school? Well, how much is it? Can you afford it? I don't know what to tell you. Well, should I send my kid to online school? Well, do they like teaching themselves? There's so many nuances and questions. And it's funny because I never thought about myself as an expert at anything. But when you've been teaching for as long as I have, you either know what you're doing or you're faking it pretty well. Fake it till you make it, my favorite motto. And it was just so interesting because as I was talking to Sara, and I've told many of you, I just had the traditional schooling where I walked to school. I went to the same middle school with the same kids in elementary school and then half the same kids in high school. But for Sara, it was pretty challenging. I would imagine bouncing around. I mean, first and foremost, you're just trying to figure out who you are as a person. And then it's like, oh, well, let's try this version of school with new kids and this version of school with new kids. And just as you seem to feel like you're fitting in, it's almost like you get ripped out of one situation and put in another. So
Yeah.
could you go into that and let us know, like, I, I always wondered that, like, how did you deal with it? I mean, again, Sarah was a kid at that point, but I always thought about her because she's a great kid and I know her parents really well. And I was always like, man, that's kind of a cruddy situation to be pulled out. So I just always wanted to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah, I honestly I didn't mind it a lot. Because you're so busy finding yourself, it was really nice to go to a new place and be like, okay, nobody knows who I am, nobody knows what I've done. I can be whoever I want to be with like no consequences and nobody like pulling up my past and being like, "Oh, well you used to be like this." And so it was kind of freeing to just I mean, I didn't have any friends, and that kind of sucked, but I could go to a new place, and everybody is really interested in the new girl. And so I would have a lot of friends, and everybody would get to know me, and I was cool because I was like kind of something new in an environment that's so stagnant, which was a lot of fun.
That's incredible because I've always said that. And like we had said earlier, I went to the same school with the same people and I was not able to reinvent myself until college. And I
Yeah.
didn't have people going, hey, sweater man, why are you becoming a hippie? And hey, what's this? And blah, blah, blah. You are actually afforded that where most of us have never gotten that opportunity, or we just weren't, I guess, didn't have what's called the intestinal fortitude to be able to do it. Because most people aren't going to just turn their hair pink and go, well, this is me today, like it or lump it. Because in middle school, everybody has their eye on you and the ire of, why are you different? Why are you stepping out of the line? So that was always something for me that I always thought was amazing about Sarah, because my wife and I would drive to Colorado, and once we found out that they were in Wilmington and Georgia, it was on the way. So we would stop and see them. And Sarah was always such a unique person in my mind, and being just kind of, you know, an outsider that got to peer in from time to time because she's my friend's kid. It was just like, I would always tell your mom, I'm like, this girl is so amazing. She's willing to be her own self. And I honestly, at that age as a boy, don't see that I could have ever done that. That I was like, nope, I'm not putting myself in that situation. And she did. But I think also acting probably helped you to do that, because even if you weren't necessarily happy with yourself, you have the ability to take on this new character. So in your mind, maybe, I'm just wondering, if this became like a character role for you and it was almost like practice for acting, where you were able to say, okay, I'm just going to become this role of this person. But you had the ability to do it because of your training.
Yeah, I mean, it's and that's where it kind of gets hard is it's really easy for me to put myself in a situation and perform. And so, especially in middle school when you're still trying to figure yourself out, it was like, is this who I am or is this who I'm acting like so people around me are interested? Because I've been doing like when you're in theater and when you're acting, I do stage theater too, and so you literally go out every night and there are 500 people watching you and they're watching every single thing you do. And so you're putting on a show and it's hard to kind of like leave that and then be yourself outside of that.
That's very introspective. Wow, Sarah, that's incredible. I never thought of it that way. Because
Yeah.
I've literally had people tell me, how do you get up in front of 25 people 5 hours a day and basically put on a show? And I'm like, well, I have a vast knowledge of U.S. history and I have a comedic way about myself, and I just kind of meld the two.
Yeah.
And there have been situations where I've been put in that because I had to. Like one year, the kids are like, Mr. Proper, can you please come watch the show for school? And I'm like, sure, you know, whatever. And so I go, and apparently, like, it overlapped with the county track meet, and half the kids were on the track team, and they couldn't make it there on time. So the person who was in charge goes, hey, Mr. Proper, can you do me a favor? And I'm like, sure, what? Can you entertain this crowd for like an hour? I'm like, excuse me? And they're like, I don't know who else to ask. And I'm like, okay. You know, totally unprepared, had
Yeah.
nothing what to do. And there I am. I got 400 people, like you said, staring at me, going, all right, make us laugh, Mr. Funny Man. And I'm like, because, you know, a lot of the kids, they'll go tell their parents, oh, Mr. Proper's so funny. He tells all these jokes. And it's one thing when you've done it so many times and you're relating it to the curriculum. It's easy, but now it's like I'm cold and I got to come up and be funny. I'm not a comedian. I don't do this for a living, but apparently I have 5 shows a day, 5 hours a day. So
how'd it go?
it actually went really well, surprisingly.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really surprised because it's one of those things where when you're good at it, once you get going, you're just going, you just keep doing it. And so it was pretty amazing. But to be honest, I didn't even know I had that in me. I wasn't expecting to be put in that position and then stand up and rise to the occasion. And that's when I knew, well, I think I can do this. Like, this isn't really that bad. But again, you have like formal training because you've taken classes and you've been in the theater and in school and you've been on television and in movies and you do all these things. Whereas for me, it's just kind of like trial and error. Oh, crap, that didn't work. I guess I'm not doing that one again. So I just have learned how to do it, and it's just something that you enjoy because reality is, you don't do this unless you like being in the spotlight. You don't like having people look at you because it's not like you're Jim Morrison of the Doors. When he first started singing, he refused to sing to the crowd. He turned around, and all you saw was his back. Of course, the girls are freaking out because he's this handsome guy and whatnot. And then out of one concert, he just turns around. I think they're singing "Touch Me, Babe," and he's like, "Touch me, babe," and he turns around, and all the girls are like, "Oh my God, that's what he looks like." Because again, it's the 60s. It's not like there was the internet to find out. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of things. It's kind of like, I guess, riding a bike. I wasn't that kid that my dad just put me on the bike and I was like, "Deuces, old man, I'm out." No, we all fall down and we all have to try and try and try. And that's what life is all about. I wanted to ask you, I just thought of it now. What was the first thing that you acted in that you were like, I think either A, I am an actress, or B, I really like to do this? Was there a role, or was there something you did where it was like, this is it for me. I want to do this.
Yeah, when I was little, I did all these short films, but it didn't really hit me until a few years ago. I was in a show we have Thalian Hall. It's this big, extravagant community theater that we use. And I was in a show called Spring Awakening. And I was originally like one of the backgrounds, but we had somebody drop out and then we had somebody else leave. And so I ended up becoming the second most important role in the show. And that was the first time that I was the youngest. I was 15 and everybody else was over the age of 18. It was a cast of 13 or 14 people.
Wow. That's
and
incredible.
So yeah, it was really insane and it was just so nice. And it was the first time that I had gotten to like hang out with people who actually go to school for acting and talk to them about it. And I had a director who was like, "You know what? Just do what you feel is right." And then she like guided us. It wasn't like,
oh wow, like almost improv-y. Like
yeah,
the words, but you got
awesome.
to act it. That is truly amazing. Because that's what I say to people all the time. Because I'm like, can I turn this into something? Because I know how to do this crap. But for me, improv is easy. Like, give me a topic and I'm off and running. I just need to do that. And I keep asking all these actors and actresses, and I'm going to ask you because I've asked several. How do you remember your lines? What is your practice? How do you get those things to stick in your head?
It's a lot of repetition, and I have this weird, it's not photographic memory, but because I've looked at the paper so long, I go, okay, I know this line and I know it's halfway up the left page. And it's kind of like, I'll do like a sentence and then I'll do a second sentence and then I'll do them both together and then you kind of just keep going. But that's
the practice. Okay, because I'd always wondered that because like I read the intro to the podcast so much. I know I have it memorized, but I still want to look at the words to get me there. And I have it memorized and I've actually like quoted it in class before. And the kids are like, "How do you remember that?" I go, "I've said it so many times." So it is the repetition. Okay, so that's your practice and that's what works for you. So because like that to me, I'm always like, I don't know if I could do that because I don't know if I could remember all those lines, and especially when it gets like really complicated and you're talking for a elongated period of time where if you're the principal actor, it's like, okay, here's your giant book of lines you have to learn. And that has always been something I'm like, damn, how do you do that? That is pretty incredible. So thank you again for coming on and telling my students about your life experiences. Because like I said, I know that there's a little Sarah in my class or listening somewhere that wants to know how to do this. And again, with your background, it kind of makes it a little bit easier because do you remember your parents like acting in things and you're just kind of like, that's pretty cool. Like, I think that's something I might want to try.
Yeah, my dad actually, I probably was about 4 or 5. He was in Spam-A-Lot, and if it's
Yes.
this, it's Camelot the movie, but it's like a spoof on it.
Monty
And
Python.
yeah, Monty Python, that's what it is. And I just remember so vividly he was King Arthur and he had this whole like get up on and he was doing a British accent and he
Yes.
was walking across the stage and he has a man behind him with 2 coconuts acting like a
Yes. I know
horse.
that scene exactly. Yes. Yes.
And I just think about that all the time because it's like this is my dad and he's being so stupid on stage right now
And
and it's
Goofy. It's
so funny.
funny. Hmm. What's
And he
funny is
just loves it.
oh yeah, he's been doing it longer than I've known him. What's
Yeah.
funny about that particular scene is my wife and I went to Scotland, and she loves a show called Outlander. And in the
Yes.
show, they film at this castle called Castle Doom. That's its real name. And what I didn't realize was that's where they shot the scene that you're talking about. And when you go there, there's literally a box of coconuts, and you can relive that. I swear I'm not making this up.
That's
And you
so
can
cool.
relive the scene. They have shot so much there. They shot Monty Python. They shot Outlander. They shot what's the other one? Game of Thrones. They've shot there, and it's a very very old castle, and it's just so cool that you can go do that. And I remember we're on the tour, and you can either have Jamie from Outlander or one of the guys from Monty Python or one of the people from the other show, and you can listen to their explanation of what's going on. And I went to the Monty Python one exactly when it came to the coconuts, and I'm like, this is the funniest thing. I love that scene where, like you said, he's walking around pretending like he's riding a horse, and there's a guy behind him making the clip clop sound with the coconuts, and you can relive that. There was a family doing it when we were there, and I'm like, oh my god, this is hysterical. I can't believe
That's
you brought
so
that.
perfect.
It is, and I'm so glad that there's that moment that you can remember. So I always ask about getting inspired for learning, but I really want to know for you. You kind of just said it with that story, but then how were you able to get inspired and take this in your own way? Like you see what your dad's doing, you saw what your mother did, and how then did you say, okay, I see what they're doing, but I'm going to make it mine and I'm going to do this? Did that ever happen for you? Did you ever have that moment?
I think I have that moment a lot still. But there's definitely when I was a kid, it would be like, okay, go out for the show. I did the Jungle Book, and it's nice because they literally just they dropped me off, and it was like it was me and a room of kids and like 3 adults that I didn't know, and so it was like, okay, nobody's gonna really tell me what to do. And I have a big problem. I love my parents so much. My mom has to like nitpick my brother to do everything. And so when she wants to like film me, she's like, okay, and I want you to say this like this. And I'm like, Mom, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that.
You have your own idea. You're your own person, and you have your
Yeah.
own ideas of how it should be. And that is, I think, helpful for you because unless you go back to that other director who let you do it however you wanted, my opinion, I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong. I'm not in this industry, but that's why you have a director. It's their vision of what something should be. Now, of course, if they're open to it and you're as good as you are, you could be like, well, can't we try it this way? Especially if you're playing a teenage girl, which you currently are, trying to tell me how to behave like a teenage girl in 2025, and you're a 55-year-old director. I think I have a better understanding of how to do that. So,
Yeah.
you know, but that's where all that comes in. And I think this is what I love about you the most. You absorb, you're literally SpongeBob. You absorb all of this stuff that you have learned from all these parameters around you. Like you're the sun and everyone else is just a planet gravitating around you, but you're pulling in what it is that you need to make Sarah Sarah and turn her into the actress that she desires to be, whether you know whatever that is or not. But you've mentioned all these things about people who have shown you the way to do something, and you've absorbed it, but then you kind of put it out as your own way. It's kind of like, I guess, like a photographer or an artist, where obviously you've got to learn the masters and you've got to learn how people did all these things. And then eventually you put it out your own way, just like comedy. And the same thing with acting. You know, you have certain actors or actresses you like, and you have certain authors that you love to read, or you have certain directors, like, if you're into the Star Wars movies, or you're into Star Trek, or you're into whatever it is you're into. I tell that to the kids all the time. You do realize you like the movie you like because the director made it look like that. And they're like, huh? Because they don't understand what the director actually does. And I'm like, it's their vision. Their vision has to get on screen somehow. And then I try to explain to them, that's why certain directors stick with certain cinematographers, certain music coordinators, certain whatever, certain actors. And that's why if you see certain movies that you like, a lot of the actors, they're friends and they're similar. Like, I know Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler loves to work with Kevin James, and he loves to work with all of these different people. And if you look at most of his movies, they're all of his friends are in his movies. Like, what an amazing career that I'm the main guy and I get to take all my friends with me and we make all these silly movies, And that's the dream, because most people don't have that leeway. Most people are just an actor, and not just, but an actor, and they're told what to do. And if you're lucky, you get to become famous enough to go, well, why can't we do it this way? Like Tom Cruise, who always has to do with all of his own stunts. Like, I just don't understand why he has to, but that's his thing. He likes to do it. Good for him.
Yeah.
I guess it really makes the movie more realistic when it's Tom Cruise, not his stunt double that just happens to look just like him. But, everybody has their own way of doing certain things. So was there a specific, maybe not teacher, but was there a specific acting coach or director or someone that really turned the light bulb on to going, this person's making me really believe I can do this?
Yeah, I think it's very hard because we have a community in Wilmington that's so incredible for young actors. And so we have all of these youth programs, and everybody's always like kind to kids. They're always like, "Oh, you're so good at this. You're so good at this." And so it's kind of like, "Oh, I try to take everything with a grain of salt." But that one experience with Spring Awakening, we had our director Morgana, she had us, okay, this is crazy. The scene is made where it's me and a guy, and we're doing it out towards the audience, and we never look at each other. And it's like a 3-minute scene. And so we do it out, and it's just 3 of us in the room. And she's like, okay, now can you guys do it to each other, and then like take that and your reactions and then do it out? And we did it, and we did it, and we did it. And then she eventually started crying, and she was like, I don't want you to do the scene out. Like, it's so powerful this way that we need to keep it like that. And it wasn't even like oh, Sarah, you're so good at this, you should do this for a living. It was like, she didn't have to say anything. What we did was enough.
Wow. So you were like, again, we're going back to this whole improv thing. You were basically given the keys to the castle and said, let's see what you can do. And all of a sudden what you could do was beyond what she could even tell you. Wow. That is incredible, because I'm wrong because you just proved this to me, but maybe it's just the Wilmington area. But it just seems so interesting that kids are still given that kind of leeway in a production where the adult is going, have at it. Let's see what you guys can do.
Yeah, that's the only time I've ever run into it, which makes me sad because it was such an eye-opening experience for me. But most of the time you just have somebody saying, okay, when you say this, you're going to walk over here, and then you're going to look at them, and then when you say this, you're going to go over here. And it's like, kids have such creative minds, and they can do so much more than you can imagine if you just like give them the opportunity to.
It's funny you say that, because as you're speaking your sentence, there's something that hits my head that I've heard my whole life that adult actors always say, and I never understood why. They're like, the 2 worst things to work in Hollywood are working with children and working with animals. And I'm like, maybe like little babies that just can't stop crying, but kids have, that's what's so great about children. They have an imagination that hasn't been stomped on by the world telling them that they're wrong and that they need to do this instead. And giving the kids their full creativity. Like, I think, I hate to say it, but most adults at some point, that's lost. That just goes away. I
Yeah.
tell the kids all the time, I'm just a giant child. I'm the biggest kid in the classroom. I go, but I just want to have fun. I'm not there to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just making jokes. And again, I'm 6'3", almost 200 pounds. That doesn't mean if I ever hurt Sarah's feelings and she was in my class, it'd be like, oh, well, that's her problem. I'd be like, look, Sarah, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it that way. And I know you're having like a little bit of a difficult day and it could easily be taken that way, but that's not what I mean. And I have no problems apologizing to a child. And I think a lot of the kids are kind of like, yeah, we've never seen that before. Like, most teachers don't apologize to the children unless it's like ultimately necessary because their job is on the line. And I'm like, well, I just want you to know as a child, that wasn't my intent. My intent was not to hurt your feelings, but everyone's entitled to take something how they take it. Like, again, Sarah comes to my class. She failed her math test. She's not going to be happy as pie like she was yesterday. And I just happened to say the wrong thing. And now all of a sudden, boom, it's awful. So you have to understand that kids have the most creative of them when they're little. Like, when they're little kids, they have all of this creativity that is dying to get out. But I'm so proud that you were able to show that to an adult, and they were just kind of like, that was amazing. That's so incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That is. It just sounds like it. So we talked about the aha connection and that light bulb turn on. Now, if you could turn back time and tell your 8th grade something that may be able to help them, what would you say? And secondly, I've just added this one. Would you believe it? Because I know I wouldn't. If all of a sudden 55-year-old Jeremy goes back to 14-year-old Jeremy, I'm going to be like, who this old man? You look like me, but you don't know nothing. Like, I wouldn't listen. So what would you tell them? And would you listen? Would you listen to Sage Sarah?
I don't know. I think I I've I've always been the girl I've been, and it's just a matter of if I was okay with it or if I was ready to like show other people. So I guess I would just say that it's not worth your energy to try to be somebody you're not. And if people don't like you, then it's like they're not worth your time and energy because you deserve more than that. And I think hopefully she would think I'm cool. But also I don't know
Because
if
you are.
I mean, yeah, whatever. No,
Yeah,
I think
whatever. It's a compliment.
I
Take it.
would listen.
Okay.
I
Well,
think I mean, I don't know if I would do it, but I think I would listen.
Okay, that's fair. I never took that into account, so now you taught this old dog. You'd listen, but you don't know if you would take it. You see, I wouldn't even be listening. I'd be like, whatever. But that's, again, the difference between girls and boys. Girls are a little bit more introspective, especially at a younger age. But that's pretty incredible because I hear that a lot. I hear either A, don't take things so hard. If you're this heavy duty academic, take a minute, take a breath, enjoy yourself. If you were going to go out with your friends on Saturday, but there's a test on Monday, it's okay to go out with your friends. It's okay. It's not going to be the end of the world. And I get that a lot. And I'm glad that it's a reoccurring theme in the podcast that people say that it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to do what you want to do. And even better, I'm sure you would be like whispering, it's all going to turn out okay. And that's what we all need to hear. We all need to know that it's going to turn out okay, especially when you're putting in as much time and energy as you are putting into this. You want to know that it's going to come to fruition and that it's moving in the right direction. And it's like, again, I'm sure you're like, well, my dad has done this for a really long time and he's been in a lot of things. And I'm sure maybe not in the frontal cortex of your brain, but in the back, you're like, well, am I going to be able to be that? Am I going to be able to be in as many things? And to be perfectly honest, I love turning on like Dawson's Creek, because we love to rewatch things that we saw when they were on. And all of a sudden, there's your dad. And I'm like, I know that guy. I know him. And it's just, that to me is one of the most amazing things. One of my favorite things to do to your dad is now, since you can like look up all of this stuff, I
Yeah.
find like these obscure movies that your dad has been in, and then I find pictures, or I'll find the movie and I'll pause it and I'll take a picture. The last one I did, he was driving a bus in this particular movie, and I'm like, who's that young man? And he's like, where do you keep finding these pictures of me? And I'm like, the internet, it's a wonderful place.
My brother will go on his computer at school, look me up, find the picture that I hate of me online,
The
and send
most.
it to all of his friends.
Oh, lovely.
And
Will,
it's
come on, dude.
awful.
I could only imagine.
Ugh,
Well, that's his way of showing you love in Will way. That doesn't mean
is
it's
that what
nice.
that is?
I'm trying to make it that way. I don't know
Okay.
if it's true, but this is what happens when you're the little brother, and I hate to say it, you're envious of your older sibling, because I am the youngest. I have an older brother. And yeah, we tend to do that. We are not quite sure how to exactly to show our love for our said older sibling when we're young teenagers. So we kind of do silly things and not realizing how annoying it is. So
Yeah.
I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to explain it by being the younger, because I used
No, it's fine. You think he's right?
to. No, I don't think he's right because you don't like the picture. I just think it's his wackadoodle young teenage boy way of showing his sister that he appreciates her by showing her the worst picture that she hates. But yeah, we all
Right.
tend to do that. Oh my God, that's funny. So, did you ever have, since we're talking mainly about the acting, did you ever have a difficult experience where perhaps the lines weren't coming to you as fluid, or you just were struggling with something and you had to like step away? How did you handle that situation? How were you able to go, oh boy, maybe I got myself into something I shouldn't have, and I still have to do it. I signed the contract. How were you able to move forward? Because that's what makes us better people, is figuring out our tribes and tribulations.
Yeah, I had a rough experience, not specifically with lines, but we have so many good youth theater like groups, and so I promised one woman I was going to go out for her show, and she's been so nice to me my like years growing up, and she's given me all these opportunities, and I was like, yeah, like I will absolutely do the show. And then somebody else announced they were doing a show, and I really wanted to do it. And I went out for both, and I was offered an incredible role in this one show, but I had given my word to somebody else. And it
Mm.
was this awful like week long pros and cons list of like, oh, like I I really want to do the show. This is my favorite thing ever. And but I told somebody close to me that I would do something for them. And so ultimately I went with the first option, and I dropped out of the show I got the part in, and I did the show that I promised I was going to do. And it's still kicking me in the butt 3 years
Sure.
later, but I think I made the right decision ultimately.
Sarah, you did make the right decision, because let's look at it from my perspective for a second. You would have been kicking yourself in the butt either way,
Hmm.
because it was a lose-lose situation. You're either going to piss off your friend who you promised this, or you're going to take this part and you're constantly going to be like, oh man, I should have done the other thing. But again, that's karma. That's when things will come back to you in the future, that something that you did not expect to happen is going to happen. I promise you it will. It may take a while, but it's going to happen. You did the right thing for a friend, which they'll never forget. They will never forget the fact that, oh, crap, she had a better role and she turned it down to do this. And that's what makes us the people who we are. And to be honest, those are the things that keep those friends forever. Those are the things that that person, I say this to kids all the time in class. We don't remember always the nice things that we do for everyone. And again, maybe you'll remember this moment, maybe you won't. But I guarantee you that person, you do nice things for people and they remember. Like I tell this story about how a friend of mine was on this daytime television show in New Jersey, and he's standing there next to the speaker. It's kind of like an Oprah show, but it wasn't Oprah. And he's standing there next to this woman. I'm like, and he sends me the picture, and I'm like, oh my God, you were on the Sally Jesse Raphael show? Holy crap, that's incredible. He didn't send me that to show me that he was on the show. He sent me that because I bought him a hoodie for his birthday. And he's like, what am I wearing? I'm like, I don't know. You're wearing a hoodie. He's like, who gave it to me? And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, you. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't even remember that. But he does. And then he runs out, I still have it, like 25 years later. So again, I've come to realize in my stage of life that we forget a lot of the nice things that we do for people, but reality is they never will. So that's going to come back, and that's going to help you in a way maybe you're aware of, maybe you're not, but it's written down somewhere that Sara did the right thing. Not to mention, did you really want that reputation as that person that agrees to do something and something better comes along and go, no thanks?
Yeah, that's a huge like problem. But because with doing theater and film, it's like you've committed yourself to a 6 week long thing, and then there's a thing that you've been offered in a matter of days that you finish in days, but it's like, am I willing to drop these people for this other thing? And it's also hard when you're thinking about money. Like, I don't make any money from doing stage theater, but I make a lot of money doing film. And like for people who have families and
Yeah,
are just doing community theater for fun, like that is a major decision that's a factor. So
right,
it's a lot.
right. Because, let's be honest, this isn't a hobby. This is a career. This is what you want to do with your life. This is what
Yeah.
you've dedicated your life since you were like 4 years old to do. I mean, most people at 18 can't say they've been doing this their whole life. You can. So you've learned a lot of different, not different, excuse me. You've learned a lot of good lessons. There are a lot of actors out there that don't understand the importance of that, who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even older. They're just going, well, this is a better situation. I'm going to get paid. I'm going to get paid to do this. Why in the world am I going to do that community theater for free? Well, you don't want to be known as the young woman that commits to one thing. It's kind of like, I don't know, what's the equivalent? Like, all right, it's senior year and it's the prom, and the the guy you want to ask you to prom doesn't, and some other guy asks you, and you're like, well, there's only like a week before the prom. I want to go. I got to go with somebody. And then, of course, eventually the guy who really you wanted to go with finally says, all right, I want to go with you. And you're like, here's your quandary. Do I go with Billy, who asked me first when nobody wanted me? Now all of a sudden I'm super duper popular and everybody wants me, and the guy I want to go with, those are moral questions of life. And these are things that we have to learn. And again, I just feel like you're so far ahead. And to tell that story is amazing because, let's be honest. When you have the opportunity that presents itself in a better way, regardless of whether it's money or a person or whatever it is, to say no because I've already committed is a very mature thing to do, which I don't think most people would do, and especially people in your career. Because, then of course in your mind, how many more times am I going to get this kind of opportunity? Or I turn this down, and how does that make me look? Well, I would hope that they would say, wow, that's a dedicated actor. That's someone that if we need something in the future, we just have to make sure she's available, that's the person we would want because those are the qualities that we would want. You don't just want somebody hopping around because, again, that's your reputation and you don't want that to go in the garbage. So what is me time for Sara? I remember, like I said, when you were probably 14 or 15, I remember that you were starting out with the guitar and that you were fumbling around with the guitar, and I remember I picked it up and I started playing, and you were just looking at me, and I'm like, yeah, I've been playing on and off since I was 17, and in my opinion, I still think I suck, but you were looking at it as 14 like, really? And then I'm like, look at Patty, she's a better guitar player than I am. So, like, what do you do to blow off steam? What is, like, if you're having this, either you're studying for your role, or, because we all need downtime, we can't just go full bore the whole time. What's a downtime moment to Sara?
I love reading. That's definitely, it's not something I'm able to do when I'm stressed, because when you're stressed, you're all in your head and it's hard to focus on the words, but it's a really nice break when you have it. And I don't know. I really love hanging out with my friends. They are some of the most incredible people and the most meaningful to me ever. And if I'm having a rough time, I'll call my best friend and I'll talk about it, and she'll come over, and it's a really nice way to talk to somebody and make a human connection when you're in this time of like isolation in your own head.
That's amazing. you got, like the song says, you gotta have friends. And
Gotta have
when
it.
you can talk to people and you can release whatever's going on, and obviously it seems like this person also isn't the type of person to go, oh my God, Sarah told me this and I have to tell everybody, and that's the true mark of a real friend. That you can tell them the deepest, darkest secrets that you have, and they're just holding on to them because guess what? They're probably doing it in return and telling you theirs. So
Mhm.
it's so important. And as I tell people all the time, realistically, you really only need one of those. Because once we have too many, then it's hard to figure out who that real person is that I can tell. And having that one real person that I can tell them and I don't have to worry, that's amazing. Because that's a lifer. That's a lifelong friend. That's somebody who's going to be there forever. Whether everyone on this planet knows who Sara Rudeseal is, or this person does, and those are the people you can trust. I talk about that when I explain to kids. They don't understand why LeBron James, his manager, his lawyer, his accountant, his PR guy, they're all his friends from middle school, and they're like, "Why is?" I go, because they knew Bron before he made $1. Like, they didn't want anything from him. They just wanted to go along for the ride. Plus, LeBron knows these guys aren't going to rip me off. These are my friends from middle school. They're here to help me and have my best interest. Plus, if they steal from me, that's it. It's over. And you want to be able to trust people. And I think in life, trusting people is an ebb and flow. There's certain people in your life you can trust them at a certain time, and then for some reason they always seem to let us down. And then, how good is the friendship? Am I able to move past this? Am I stuck in it? But just having these friends from childhood that you can hold on to, that understand what you were like at a certain age and then growing up, and they understand, the difficulties. Plus, you could talk to them about your acting and how things are going. And is this person also a thespian? Are they an actor as well?
Yes, yeah, and I like my one thing, if anybody takes anything away from this, is if you have a problem, talk about it. Like
Agreed.
we have been friends for 4 years now, and we don't get in fights, but we have like things about each other that bother each other, and we would not be friends if I didn't just text her and go, "Hey girl, like we have to hash it out."
That's awesome. But
Yeah.
again, that's a true friend because you can tell them that. And that goes with any relationship, Sarah, whether it's a friend, a boyfriend, a husband, whatever it is, that is so true. If you cannot tell the other person, the problem is, I think a lot of the time people think that they're going to hurt their feelings and they don't want to say it because they think it's going to hurt their feelings. But if I don't tell you, it's going to drive me nuts. And then you're at the quandary of, I get to go insane, but you don't know why it's driving me nuts. But that's amazing that you have someone like that, and especially another actor, because they get it, And I can imagine that would be hard if it wasn't an actor friend, because you're trying to explain things that they don't do and they don't know. It's like if your best friend was, I don't know, huge into STEM and she was a coder, and she's like, oh my God, I can't figure out this line of code. And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what is that? So
Yeah.
that's amazing that she does the same thing and you're there to promote each other and help each other out. And that's what's so cool. And again, by understanding it, you're not worried about, if I say this to her, is she going to look at me like I have 3 heads and go, I don't know what you're talking about. But the crazy part about it is, like I say to my kids, during COVID, we had to do this social and emotional learning. Did you guys do that in Wilmington or Georgia when you were home? No?
No.
Okay, so what we would do is we'd have these topics every day, and we talk about different emotions and different things. And I remember one day I had this girl, and she was so upset because she was an athlete and she played basketball. But for whatever reason, they canceled the girls' sports. Of course, girls always getting the
Right.
poop end of the stick. And she's like,
Naturally.
well, naturally, right? And so I was like, well, what did you do? She goes, well, I went to the boys' coach and I said, can I play? And he's like, I guess so. And then she goes on to tell us about how the boys, because it's middle school, they were just giving her crap and all these things. And I felt so bad for her. But for the first time in my life, I realized, Jeremy, shut up. Just listen to her. And she went on and on and on for like 10 minutes. And after it was all over, she turns to me and said, oh, and meanwhile, it was COVID, so we were back to school. So we only had like 6 kids in the class, and everybody else was on the computer screen because they were home. And she turns to me and she goes, you know what, Mr. Proper, I really appreciate what you did. And in my head, I'm going, I did nothing because I don't have an answer because I have no idea what you're experiencing because I was never a eighth grade girl. And she goes, you didn't try to solve my problem. And I was like, whoa, that works? And she goes, yeah, I just needed to say it. Because I think as men, when we see girls and women in distress, it's kind of our kryptonite, like the whole must help woman, must help
It's
girl.
so bad.
And I think that's even worse than mansplaining. And we feel like we have to help you. And that was the quintessential moment when I realized this girl doesn't need my help. She just needs to vent. Let her just say what she has to say and move on. And that's exactly what she did. And I was like, mind blown. Like my whole brain exploded outside of my head because I don't know if we're intrinsically taught this or we just know it inside. Intrinsically is inside. If we're taught it or intrinsically know it. And we just feel like we have to help. And then I did help by doing nothing. I never thought that doing nothing would help a teenage girl, and it did. And I tell that story all the time where I'm just kind of like, sometimes you just need to listen and they're not looking for an answer. You're sentient beings, girls and women. You have big brains. I have no problems admitting this. You're smarter than men. You just don't get the credit for it. And they want to be able to just talk about things. Because that's the thing, like going back to Hulk, proper smash. I feel like I just have to break everything. And, it's okay to talk about your feelings. That's why we need girls and women in our lives to show us the lighter side of how things should work, because you guys definitely are deeper thinkers at a younger age. And, again, going back to that reading thing, oh my God, I wish I enjoyed reading. But having 6 concussions before the age of 12, that was definitely on the no-no list. I love listening to books on tape, but reading myself, I wind up reading the same line 52 times, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, so frustrating. I mean, I even have friends who've written books, mailed them to me, and like, can you read my book and tell me what you think? And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take me like a month. I do it, but it's like, it's torture. So that's one thing for me that I wish that I could have the enjoyment of reading for myself, where it's just reading for pleasure. And to be honest, I'm very envious of people like yourself who they're like, I just love reading. And in my head, I'm going, what's that like? Like, I don't understand. I've always had, because I was a history major in college, I just had to read to ad nauseum and learn all these facts and dates and people's names and jobs. But I never went, I like science fiction. Let me try to read about whatever. It just was something that for me, it's like a roadblock. So I'm so glad that for you, that's something that you found that can just calm your mind and get you like, okay, what do you like to read? What's your genre of choice?
I really enjoy coming of age. Those are most of my favorite books, but right now,
I wonder why.
stop.
I'm kidding. Because she's 18 and she's
Because
coming
I'm
of age.
18.
Well, no, I mean, you've been reading these coming of age stories since you were a young girl. So it gives you ideas and hope. And that's so sweet, though. I love that you have that and that again, I'm not making fun. I think this is truly amazing. And again, the fact that you're willing to share this with me and everyone else is incredible because you found something that you like, which to me is not the norm. It's not what, well, maybe it is for 14 to 18-year-old girls, but I don't know how many of them are going to admit it. And I just think that that's amazing that you found this genre. What about it? Do you feel like it helps you with your acting? Do you feel like it helps you with growing up as a young woman? What is it about it that attracts you to that genre?
Yeah, I think it's just how easy it is to like read and understand. It's not this complicated like the Iliad thing where you have to think about every word and you have to go
Right.
back and define it.
What
It's
does
like,
this mean? What are they doing?
yeah,
It's pretty straightforward. It's like an easy
yeah.
read. Yeah,
It's
I guess.
just like it's what I do for fun. And I
Yeah.
enjoy classics too because even if they're harder, it feels like I'm being like scholarly
There you go. You're
in a
learning
way.
something. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I've had people tell me that before. They're like, well, what have you tried to read? And have you ever read things that are just like an easy read? And I just don't comprehend that until you just said it. That it
Yeah.
makes it easier because it's not in-depth technical language. They're not using words that are so over your head or like in the Iliad, as you clearly pointed out, language from 2,000 years ago or whenever that happened. And
Yeah.
therefore you're kind of like, well, well, how does that pertain to today? And what were they trying? It becomes too much analytical thought, and it seems like you just want to get lost in the story and just go with it, not have to sit there and go, what was Homer really thinking when he wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey? Like, I don't understand. And that's it. So maybe I've been reading the wrong things, and that could be something. That makes a lot of sense because
I feel like you'd tear up a comic book.
oh, yeah. I used to love comic books when I was a kid. I was like, these are easy. There's like 20 pages and it's over. Yeah, this is amazing. And actually, I had a whole bunch of friends who were comic book collectors as a kid. That I never understood.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, there's not enough room to like keep all these things because they add up over time. But yeah, the comic book is good because it's kind of like a 15 to 20 page story with pictures and it's over and you're just reading those little thought bubbles and that's it. But that makes a lot of sense for sure. To be honest, when I was a kid, what I loved to read if I had to choose anything was I had subscriptions to all the car magazines, Road and Track, Car and Driver. I would love to read about the cars. And to the point where my brother would like quiz me every once in a while. He'd be like, okay, Lamborghini, how fast is it 0 to 60? And how fast is it 60 to 0? And how much does it cost? How much horsepower does it have? What engine's in it? And that kind of information I knew. I guess like we were trying to say, I don't know if I said it well enough, but finding the genre that you as a person who are interested in, I think is what makes reading for pleasure more enjoyable when it's
Yeah.
not just crammed down your throat. But that's awesome that you've read that. Now, like I asked before, do you feel like that reading this has helped you with any of the roles that you have had? Like reading this particular genre, does that put you in a position when you get a role like that you're going, oh, okay, I know what this girl is supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I think not even just specifically, but when you read a book, you're in somebody else's mind, and so it helps solidify, oh, this is a character, and this is literally an entire book, and it's going through not just their feelings, but the situations around them, and then you have to kind of infer how they feel. And so it definitely helps to be a reader and be an actor because if you open a book, you're reading a story and you're interpreting it in your own way, just how you would a role. But there's also just like, there are plays on books. And so I'm
Right.
gonna audition for To Kill a Mockingbird and I'm
Oh,
gonna read
lovely.
To Kill a
Love that one.
Mockingbird and I'm
Yeah.
gonna look over all of Scout and all of Mayella and I'm just gonna like see what they're like.
Wow. Who would you be auditioning for? Which role?
Um, Either Scout or Mayella. It depends on Scout is
Okay.
typically like 6, but
Yeah,
in
Scout's
the
really young.
Broadway, yeah, in the Broadway though, they have like a 30-year-old playing her
Yeah,
just
you can't have a
because it's
6-year-old doing
so,
that. They're
yeah,
not
it's
going to remember.
insane.
Yeah, those are some heavy duty lines for a 6-year-old.
Well, not even heavy duty, just like the subjects. Like,
Oh, yeah. For sure. Oh, yeah. What it's talking about is really, really big. Like, did you read that in middle school? Because we read that here in middle school.
no, we weren't ever required to read it. I've read
Wow.
it, but I'm gonna go back and read it again. I love it so much. But we really, in school, we only have read books on the Holocaust and dystopian.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
then there's obviously the Tony Curtis version of it. If you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend it because it was made not too long after the book came out. So it's still time period correct, so
Yeah.
it's in black and white and it really puts it in perspective. So definitely watch the movie because it'll help a lot to understand. Now you see the character alive, in the book. In the book, it's very interpretive, because like you said, you read it and you take it as you take it. But seeing it in its actual print form in a movie could also help as well. And it's one of those books and movies that everyone has to read and everyone has to see for themselves because it's just so strong of a book. And that's incredible
Yeah.
that you're going to do that. So this is going to be a play.
Yes, yeah, it's a straight play.
Awesome. Was there anything about your middle school that you didn't realize that you learned that when you went to high school, you turned around and you were kind of like amazed? Oh my God, I learned that in middle school and it's actually helping me in high school. Was there anything along that line? I know you went to a bunch of middle schools, so maybe there was something that stuck.
Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, I've been to 4 and they were all so different from each other because there's an online and there was a group where we only had like 5 kids, but I I think mostly what I took away from it was to not really care. Like, that's awful, but to not
No,
really
that's
care
fine.
about
It's a
what
lesson.
everybody
It's a
else,
lesson learned.
yeah, not really care about what everybody else is doing so
Well,
much.
you have a very interesting life story as a young woman, and it's easy to not get caught up in that because your mindset is not really school. Your mindset is the stage, is in
Hmm.
front of camera. And was that, if you don't mind me asking, was that a challenge or difficult? Like, did kids know to the extent of what you were doing? And were they like either, oh my God, Sarah, that's amazing, or they're like, oh my God, why is she doing this?
It's definitely been both. Middle school was rough because that's when everybody's kind of like just mean because they don't know who they are, and so they're like pushing it on other people. But I got a lot of like my headshot is online if you look up my name, and so people would just look up my name and like show me pictures of me online, and it was like, well, this is kind of unnerving. I don't know why we're doing that. But now it's kind of a thing where people are interested in it and they want to figure out how I've done it because they want to do it. But I definitely did catch a lot of mean stuff, as
Yeah,
specifically in middle school.
that's middle school, and that's what's
Yeah.
very unfortunate because it's like kids are mean for a lot of different reasons. They're mean because they're mean. They're mean because they like you. They're mean because they're jealous. They're mean because fill in the blank. My mom would tell me that my whole life. Well, you know why kids are mean to you, and I'm like, I don't know, because I'm a tall, skinny redhead. She's like, no, because they're jealous of you. And I'm like looking in the mirror, going, jealous of that? I'm not on TV. I'm not an amazing musician. I'm not, like an amazing athlete or whatever. It's not like I'm incompetent, but there's nothing that really stood out. And obviously, when mommy tells you things, do we believe those? Generally not.
Not
Because
one bit.
mommy's supposed to tell me these things. That's your job. This is what you signed up for, to make me feel better. But as a child, you don't necessarily believe it. And even as an adult, I'm like, people are jealous of me. Why? And it's like, look, you are very similar. You have this air about yourself where it's like, I do this, and if you don't like it, that's a you problem. That's not a me problem. And it's not going to make me reevaluate because, oh my God, someone was mean or jealous of me. I can't do this anymore. No. If that's the case, just move on over. And it's always lovely, like when you can prove the naysayers wrong. Like that's been one of my favorite things my whole life. When people are always like, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's like, yeah, I'll show you. And then what's probably going to be difficult for you when you get older is all these people are then going to look you up later on in life. And it's like, oh my God, look at what Sarah has done. Or they go to the movie theater and not realizing there's Sarah in this major motion picture and she's the
Hopefully.
role. Oh, no, there is no hope. It's going to happen. I said it to the universe. It's going to happen. And
Okay, boom.
boom is right. And but then, okay, how would you like to be able to handle that situation? If there's someone that you remember who is not so nice to you, then all of a sudden, here's Sarah in this unbelievable movie, which is worldwide. You become this famous actress that just about everybody knows and everybody wants in their movies. And then all of a sudden, these people, these lurkers, start to lurk their way back into your life. I can't imagine what that must feel like when people are like, I mean, I guess maybe if they apologize or realize, look, I was just a middle school kid, I didn't realize what was going on. But would you be able to forgive, forget, or are you like me and just a big grudge holder?
Yeah, no, I think a lot of times people don't even remember that they were mean. And so a lot of stuff that like has impacted my mom from her middle school days, people will text her and be like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And she's like, they don't remember that like I still think about to this day what they said to me in 7th grade. And so my haters are my motivators. If you are gonna
Love
say
it.
that I can't do something, I'm gonna go out of my way to make sure that I can do it. And so, not even in like a snarky way, but kind of just like oh, like, thanks, because you were mean to me and that made me part of the person I am, and I'm stronger today because of it, and it got me where I am. I probably wouldn't say thank you. I'd probably like block them or like heart the message, but not say anything, but like,
That's amazing. You are truly, truly a wonderful young woman, and I am so proud to know who you are because your insight is amazing. Sarah could have easily been like, haters gonna hate, 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 and then I'm gonna do this and that and the other thing. And you're just such the better person, and that's what I've always loved about you. You're just kind of like the duck that the water falls off its back. Like you don't let it absorb you. You just see, okay, this is a you problem. This isn't a Sarah problem. You're the one with the jealousy and the issues. And that just shows your immense maturity. And it also shows, again, having gone through tribes and tribulations of your own. And your mother is 100% right. I still remember, and I won't tell the kids what it is, but I tell them, I still remember the mean things kids said to me in 7th grade as well. And, you don't forget those. And it's one of those things where, like, at some point you try to forgive and not forget and hope that the same 7th grade kid is not that same 45-year-old person and that you've
Yeah.
moved on from that. But unfortunately, as my brother loves to tell me, you stop being friends with people for a reason. And most of the time, that reason never changed. I tried to
Yeah.
become friends with people that the friendship waned and crapped out in high school. And then 30 years later, you try to rekindle that friendship and you're just like, you're just the same person 30 years older. Like nothing has changed. But you want to give people the benefit of the doubt. And that's the thing. Like I always wondered, for instance, right before COVID, Patty and I went to LA. And it was Friday night, and we needed to go to Whole Foods and go to the grocery store. And I'm not expecting to run into famous people at Whole Foods on a Friday.
It's LA.
That's right. It's LA. You're going to go anywhere and see famous people because I've been there many times and I know that's how it works. But I just wasn't thinking about it. Have you ever seen the show Modern Family? Remember the father, Ed O'Neill? Well,
Oh
there
my
he
gosh,
is.
yes, Phil.
Yeah. No. Phil is the dad. It's Claire's dad. The
Claire's
older
dad,
guy.
yes.
The older guy who's married to Sofia Vergara.
Okay.
So we're walking into Whole Foods, and again, this is where my ADHD is fired right up. Like, it takes me less than a millisecond to go, oh my God, that's Ed O'Neill. And Patty's, looking at her phone, doing whatever, has absolutely no idea. She's, as I say, in Pattyland, has no idea what's going on. And I look right at him, and he puts his head down immediately because he realizes I know who he is. And he was just kind of like, throws his hands up like, he's got a pint of Ben and Jerry's in his hand. He kind of looks like he's wearing his pajamas. It's Friday night. And he just kind of gives me the look of, I don't really want to be Ed O'Neill right now. Can I just be some guy buying a pint of ice cream and going home? And I was kind of like, I give him the nod, okay. And he mouths, and I'll never forget. Thank you. And I was like, you know what? It was better to give this guy his moment alone. He obviously didn't want to be the famous guy. But I can't understand what that, like I said, kids run into me at the grocery store, out all the time. I can't imagine what it's like to just be anywhere and everyone knows who you are. And at some point in time, you just want to be a regular person. And I've always said that, and I'm really proud of myself that I lived up to. So many people always, oh, you're so dumb. Why didn't you get a picture and an autograph? I go, read the room. Like, you got to understand what's happening. Like, this guy was in, and he didn't say a single word. He was just such an expressive person. And I could just feel it. And I feel other people's, woes. I'm not an empath, that's Patty, but I could feel other people's woes. And I was like, it would have been really great to meet this guy. But guess what? It would have turned out awful. And I would have thought, oh my God, Ed O'Neill's the jerk. He didn't want to take a picture. He didn't want to sign an autograph. All he wanted to do was take his Ben and Jerry's, get it into his Tesla and ride and drive home. That's all he wanted. And I really felt good about myself that I recognized that. And I'm like, man, it must suck to be that, where you can't even go outside without being recognized. And again, I don't quite fully understand what that feels like, but I know it's going to happen to you. Are you ready for it?
No. That's like, I think about that so much, not just like not about me, but about other people. And people always post pictures of these like celebrities they made, and it's like, Diva, that's a real person, and they were probably like so like I'm sure that they're excited sometimes, but they're probably so tired of people going up to them and just asking for a photo and not being like, "Hey, how are you? This is my name.
Right.
What is your name?" Like,
Right,
it's like,
right.
oh, stand next to me, we're gonna take a photo like robots, and then I'm gonna leave.
And that's it. And I'm going to walk away. And now I'm going to treasure this moment forever. But you're supposed to be nice to me. And if you're
Yeah.
not, I'm going to rip you on the internet. And that's the problem. Like I tell the kids all the time, famous people are people too. When I lived in Miami, there was this grocery store right around the corner from my house. And one Saturday I went in there and I saw this brand new Hummer. This was a long time ago. And brand new yellow Hummer. And I'm like, this doesn't fit this place. Who's here? And I'm like, it's got to be somebody famous. Long story short, it was one of the Miami Heat players. And I knew exactly who he was because I used to follow basketball. And meanwhile, I'm 6'3". This guy's like 6'11". So he's towering over me like I tower over you. And that never happens to me. I never run into people that tall. And so I'm like just standing there and I'm like, I want this guy to know I know who he is, but I don't want to be an oogly fan and an autograph and da-da-da-da and this and that. And so we're talking and, so finally I look at the guy and I'm going, you know, it's finally nice to be somewhere out in public where someone's actually taller than me. I'm usually the tallest dude. And he's looking down at him and he goes, yeah, that's definitely true. And to let him know that I knew who he was, I turned to him and go, well, it worked. There are people that are taller than you all the time. And he looks at me and he just starts smiling this grin like, okay, you know who I am and you're not a crazy fan. And then here's the crazy part. Every week for like the next 4 to 6 weeks on Sunday at 2:00, I would go to the grocery store and there he was. And the second week, when he realized I knew who he was, he's like, do you follow basketball? And I'm like, dude, I didn't even say yes. I'm like, what was that call last night? How did you get that foul? I was sitting there. I saw the whole thing. He's like, you were at the game? I'm like, I have season tickets. I go all the time. Now, all of a sudden, we're best friends and we're talking about basketball and yelling at the refs and all this craziness. And I tell that to kids all the time. Just treat these people as people because that's what they are. Yes, they're famous people. Just cross out the F famous word and just treat them as normal human beings because you're going to get a lot more out of them. And this was at least 25 years ago, Sarah, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. All right, well, how about this last one? Let's go with this. So what do you feel is an actor's obligation to the public? And where does that obligation begin and where does that obligation end when it comes to pictures, autographs, like meeting people? Like, how do you perceive that?
I haven't had that problem, thankfully.
Not
So
yet.
I don't know how qualified I am to talk about this, but I think,
Hey, you're more of an
um,
actress than I'll ever be, so you're more qualified. Let's go. You've been on stage, you've been on movies, and you've been in TV shows. So yes, maybe people aren't like, oh my God, it's Sam, but it's going to happen. People are going to recognize you, and I'm sure it's happened a couple of times where people realize who you are. But my point is, like, I'm not saying how have you, but what do you think you would do? Like, how would you treat it? Is it situational, depending on like you're out with your family eating dinner, or
I think it's hard because at the end of the day, you're famous and you have the career that you love to do because these people watch you. And so you have a certain obligation to them because that's literally like they are your job. Like that's who you are entertaining and that's why you get to do what you do. But it's also like if I'm in public and I'm clearly not wanting to talk, like there has to be some sort of like awareness that a lot of people don't have today and it stresses me out, but like it's just the idea that you can look at somebody and tell that they don't want to have a conversation and then walk away. So I think it's
my Ed O'Neill story, exactly. That you have
yeah.
to read the room, see where they are, like you know. And again, it's the same thing. Like you can't sit there and sign autographs for the rest of your life either. I have to go and do what I have to go and do. I'm sorry that it ended with you. And that's always the disgruntled person who goes online. It's like, oh my God, I waited in line for 4 hours. And Sarah, what did I do? Well, I had to go do crap. Like I can't just stay here forever, you know. And I think you're right. I think that people have this misconception of owning people. Like it's like I own you because I bought your music, I went to your movie, I did this, I did that, and that you deserve that time because I finally ran into you. You should do that. Well, that's incredible because again, these are insights that I wouldn't know. I've never really had a career as you do, this new career that's coming up. So what what are you currently working on anything? I know you said that To Kill a Mockingbird thing is next, but is there anything else like on the docket that we should be aware of and looking out for?
No, not at the moment. I'm gonna be volunteering my time to do we have a community thing called Peter or Pied Piper, and
Oh,
so I'm gonna be doing Jack and the Beanstalk, and we perform to I
nice.
think like we do 18 shows, and they're all second graders, so that's gonna be a lot of
Oh,
fun.
that's adorable. So, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, if you're listening, she said the most important word in life: volunteer. That means she's using her time and not getting paid. We all have to understand this. We have to give back. And especially when we're up and coming and we're turning into things, because you have to give back. Because what Sarah has to offer, she can give to these kids and show them, look, I was you. I did this. And now look at me where I am. And they can look up to you as a role model and see that there is a plausible possibility that this could be a career or something to do. So I'm just so proud of you that you volunteer and you do those things, because a lot of people get the mindset of, well, if I don't get paid, I ain't going to do it. And you can't have that mindset, because like we said earlier about karma, it's going to come back and get you. And doing the right thing when no one's looking, doing the right thing when there aren't cameras around, doing the right thing to help out the younger generation, because somebody helped you out. You were talking about the community theater where you live, and how people who never got on screen in any capacity, they weren't in the movies, they weren't on television, but they were still imparting to you how to do it. You picked up you have a giant suitcase that you're carrying around with hundreds of little tidbits that you picked up. This is what I'm seeing from all of these actors that have shown you the way beyond your parents, and you take them all in. And again, I'm not just tooting this woman's horn because I've known her whole life. Her story is just amazing. And the fact that she gives back, which I think is the most rewarding thing to do. We never hear about this. Like Keanu Reeves, you never hear about the things that he does. Like, he's an amazing guy. He was on one film, I think he was doing, what is that action movie thing that he does? What is his?
John Wick, right?
Yes, John Wick. On one of the John Wicks, I think it was either the first or the second one, he loved all the stunt guys. He bought them all Harley Davidson motorcycles. Like, these are things you never hear about.
That was my favorite. Robin Williamson did that. He hired a bunch of homeless people as extras just because he could. And it was
and
like,
talk about giving back. I mean,
yeah.
really, extras just to be in a movie to get paid to help these people who are homeless. Like, these are things that we have to remember. We all come from somewhere, and we have to remember that if we do become rich, if we do become famous, or if we do both, you got to give back. It's so, so important, because especially in the world of social media, where people just see you as, like we said, the moment they met you and it all went bad. It's like, that's one moment in my life. I feel so bad for some stars who get caught up in that, where something happened and now everyone's against them because of some stupid moment that happened. It's like, move on. You don't need to be famous to say you had a bad moment, but no one's holding me accountable for the rest of my life and holding my career hostage because, I had a bad day Christmas Eve and I didn't want to sign an autograph for somebody, or whatever the case may be. But you are so far ahead of the game. And I've always seen so many things positively for you, and I'm glad I've been proven right. So that just tells me that the future is just what I've been thinking. And Sarah, thank you so much for coming on here and telling your story, because I know there are people out there going, how can I do that? I have no idea. I don't know anybody famous. I don't know somebody who started off as an actor as a kid and now has moved into adulthood and is still doing it. Because I think acting squashes a lot of dreams. You've been very fortunate to live in an area where there's a lot of production, whether it be paid productions or just volunteer productions, to continue to hone your craft. And I love the fact that you've been on television, you've been in movies, and yet you're still willing to do these local theater things, which for yourself is a giving back. And also you're able to do what you enjoy. And that's what they say. What is that old adage? Enjoying what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that that's what Sarah's doing. She's finding her passion. She's working in an area that she loves, and it's coming to fruition. But as we know, it takes time. It wasn't just like Sarah went at 17, I want to be an actress, and boom, wound up on a television show. It doesn't happen that way. It's taken years and years and years of practice, years and years and years of no. You've heard that word before, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's no one's favorite word
More
for any.
times than I can count.
But what is amazing about you is your stick-to-itiveness. And you don't just go, well, they said no, I'm packing it in. I'm going to become a computer engineer now. You're like, all right, they said no, but somebody else is going to say yes. And you have a wonderful cheering staff at home. You have great friends. You know, Patty and myself have been watching your career your whole life, and we're just so amazed. I'd love to watch you in movies and on television. And like I said, it's one of my favorite things to go, I know that person. And and she knows me too. And so, because my kids are always like, yeah, you say you know them, but do they know you? I'm like, yes, they do. If they were
I
in a
know
room with
you.
me, of course you do. Thank you so much. But again, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for helping out teenage you in a different time, in a different place, to understand that anything is truly possible. If you put
Thank
in the
you so
hard
much
work,
for having me.
oh, my pleasure. I'm so grateful, and thank you.
Thank you for listening to How I Got Here podcast with Mr. Proper. Music provided by Miss Mata. Thank you to Patty Fernandez for the introduction. Thank you to Seth Proper for logistics and behind-the-scenes production. Join us next time for another episode of How I Got Here and more stories of former students and their journey.